What's going on, everybody? Sean Pierce Johnson here, bringing you this week's episode of Stompbox Saturday. And on the Stompin' Block today, we have the Echorec from CATALINBREAD Effects. So, we've taken a look at one other pedal that seeks to replicate the Binson Echorec, and to me, the Echorec is really where that craze started. To me, it was the first pedal that truly captured that crazy, wacky sound in a pedal, and to do it really, really well. The controls are fairly simple. The tones go from vintage recreation to as exploratory as you want. So let's check out the controls. You have a mix that can get you 100% dry to 100% wet. You have swell, which is essentially your feedback. Tone, which allows you to set the EQ point of the repeats of the delay signal. You have a delay time and a 12-mode tape head selector so that you can get the different combinations of delay head effects that you were able to get in the original Echorec and some you weren't able to get. It's got a really wide delay time, and man, the sounds that are in this pedal are truly unbelievable. They are ranging from just really crisp, nice delay like you heard at the top to just utter wash, and quite frankly, kind of feels like the underworld is coming up through the ground. Don't believe me? Let's just dive right in and try to find some sounds that are just an absolute blast to play. I told you we could get exploratory with this thing, and this is one of my favorite things to do with the Echorec. Taking the tone knob and turning it down considerably. Usually between 9 and 10 o'clock, that's where I think it sounds the best. Anything further than that I find is just a little too dark, and it's almost like it's not even there. Turning up the delay time to a nice long echo, and of course turning the swell up so that you really get those repeats stacking on each other. Now, the one thing I can say is that with this kind of dark echo setting, if you get past a certain point on the swell, things just start building up and up and up and up, and pretty soon you're playing over something that is starting to take over your tone. I'll show you what I mean again. First, I'll turn the pedal off, and I'll play a different line that you guys can hear. So I've turned the swell up just about 1, 2 o'clock on the dial. Keeping the settings pretty much the same that I had, but more swell, you'll see that things start getting a little, well, they start getting a little fuzzy. You still hear that? Because I sure can, and I can feel it too. But as you could hear, you start to get a little bit of fighting between your original note and the delayed signal. And of course you can adjust that with the mix knob, but one of the things I find with the darker sounds is you kind of have to keep the mix knob up a little louder than you might originally want. But I think that it's one of those sounds that if you start playing around with it, you just never know what you're gonna find with it. this setting I like a lot for staccato style riffing, and I think this is a really good setting to show you the unique sound of the Echorec. It really does a good job of replicating that idea of a magnetic drum turning round and around and around and hitting the playback heads that the Echorec, the original one at least, had in its big giant enclosure. And I haven't really found that sound with the other Binson style pedals that I've come across in my day. I think this one does the best job of replicating that unique modulated delay sound. Of course, we could also take off the distortion and go clean, and we get something like this. Yeah, I can still hear that rotation. I think that as you turn up the tone knob, that's really where you're going to start to hear that modulation. As a matter of fact, let's just turn it all the way up and see how that changes up the tone of our repeats. Even at the higher settings, it doesn't get too brittle. It kind of stays in that nice, tape echo really isn't as dark as people think that it is. I think you probably get that from, analog delays kind of replicating that tape warmth when really this is more along the lines of how warm tape actually is. But I love this one. I think it's a really, really nice sound. Well, there you have it, everybody. There is your look at the Echorec from CATALINBREAD. I think that this does a pretty darn good job of replicating that original Binson unit. But the real magic for me is in finding sounds that are just left or maybe even right of center that are a little more adventurous, a little bit more out there, something that isn't quite just a vintage recreation. That is the strength of the CATALINBREAD. Finding something for you, not just something to replicate the sounds of the past. I want to say a big thank you to Mickey at Distortion Brothers for sending that my way, and if you're interested in adding one of these to your collection, look no further than distortionbros.com and give Mickey a call and he'll hook you up. Stay tuned for next week's episode of Stompbox Saturday, and until then, my friends, I wish you great tone and happy stomping. Cheers.